Toastmasters, Madam Toastmaster. Today I was talking with my friend Terry, and I don't know exactly how, but the subject of panhandlers came up. How many of you have seen a panhandler in the last week? How many of you have given money to a panhandler in the last week? How many of you have given money to a panhandler ever? That's the question Terry and I discussed. How do we decide who gets the money? We both agreed that we had certain rules. Terry said, I will never give money to anybody who looks like they could beat me up. She said, if they can beat me up, they can get a job. My rule is I will never give money to anybody who has kids in tow while they're panhandling, because I just find that so monstrous that I will have nothing to do with them. But then we started to talk about the people that we have given money to in the past. I talked about a time a few years ago when I was walking down Dearborn Street in the Gold Coast, and a man came up to me. He was in his 20s. He was dressed like guys in their 20s are. He didn't look like a homeless person. He said, excuse me, excuse me. I said, I thought he might be asking for directions. I said, yes. He said, I don't mean to offend you, but I'm gay. And I burst out laughing because I thought, why would that offend me? And I said, why would that offend me? He said, I just wanted to let you know. Did you notice this? I looked at his arm and he had a hospital bracelet on it. And I said, no, I hadn't noticed that till you brought it up. I just got out of the hospital today. I got out of the hospital over at Northwestern, and I don't have enough money to find some place to go to bed. And I'm really hungry. Can you help me out? I said, well, I can't give you enough to help you go to bed, but I can definitely get you something to eat. Oh, thank God, thank God. I said, where would you like to go? And he said, what? I said, well, there's a McDonald's over there. There's a sandwich shop over here. We could go there. He said, oh, you don't have to go with me. You could just give me the money. And I said, I would prefer to go with you and get you something. I enjoy talking with you. Oh, no, I can't take up all of your time. I said, well, really, I'm not doing anything, but we can go over there. McDonald's is right here. Or like I said, there's a sandwich shop. He said, well, I'm really not that hungry right now, thank you. And off he went. And I was kind of disappointed because I sort of liked him, and it was obvious that really he was not that hungry. He just wanted the money. Terry told me that just last week she was at a McDonald's, and when she pulled up, there was a lady in front, just sitting in the front, that said, I need money. And the woman she was an older woman. She was just sitting there, and it was so hot. It was one of those really, really hot days, and she looked just so miserable. Terry really felt sorry for her, and she was with her boyfriend. They drove through, and she said, let's get something for that lady. She ordered a Big Mac. She asked for a bottle of water because she figured the woman was probably thirsty. She pulled out to the front. The woman was kind of on the side. She honked her horn a little lightly. The lady came over and said, yes. Terry said, this is for you. Handed her, she'd asked to have it bagged up separately. Handed her the bag. And he said, oh, thank you, thank you. She went to the side. She opened it up. She pulled out the Big Mac. Pulled out the water. She looked at Terry. Threw the Big Mac at the car. Then she picked up her sign and she said, can you read? I need money! Terry was stunned. He couldn't believe it. As she drove off, though, she noticed that the woman had opened the bottle and was having a drink. Both of us talked about the fact that apparently we've given money to some undeserving people. But I remembered a story that happened a few years ago. Again, in front of a McDonald's. I was walking down the street, and there was a very old, very skinny man in his 70s or 80s, no teeth. And he just looked really sad, and he looked at me and he said, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm really hungry. Could you get me maybe a sandwich? And my heart went out to him. I don't know why. And I asked him, well, do you want to come into McDonald's? Oh, that would be great. We went in and I said, what would you like? He said, well, would a cheeseburger and a cup of coffee and some fries be okay? I said, sure. So I ordered the cheeseburger and the cup of coffee and the fries. They gave it to him, and as they gave it to him, he said, could I ask for one more thing? I thought, oh, here comes money. I said, what? And he said, could you sit with me while I eat it? I said, sure. So I sat down with this man, and he ate very delicately, fine manners. He told me he was an alcoholic, he'd lost his family, he was alone, he was homeless, he had nobody to talk to, and this was the finest treat he'd had in a week. And I thought, that was money well spent. Terry and I talked about it, and neither of us knows how we pick out these people, how you pick out the one guy that will make your day for the cost of a sandwich, and how you avoid the old lady who's going to throw your sandwich back in your face because I want money! If you have the answer, I'd love to hear it.
Shannon, fantastic job on an off-the-cuff speech. You weren't even prepared for it, really. It was excellent. Good expression of emotions. I liked it when you said, can't you read? I need money. You used a real squealy voice. That was good. I wrote burst out laughing gay. Not sure what I mean by that.
I burst out laughing.
You burst out laughing. Okay. I like that. I liked your different voice intonations. I liked the way you kind of moved around in different spots. I like movement up there. I thought you did some good movement. Where I feel you might, it's really difficult because you did such a great job, but I did come up with a few things for growth opportunity. Maybe you gestured too much. I'm trying to learn to keep my hands at my side. I even use Scotch tape to keep them there and only gesture when necessary. That's really hard for me to do. Maybe better descriptions of the characters, because you were saying he and she, and I didn't know what their name was, or wasn't sure what they looked like. So if you could just say 2 or 3 things about them. Blonde hair. You did describe the older woman who looked miserable. That woman did get a description. And the guy was gay, but maybe his hair color and his name or something. I don't recall that you gave a description of Terry, so I couldn't picture her in my mind. Description of a boyfriend. There was a boyfriend. So there were a lot of characters. Maybe describe and name each one so I can remember who you're talking about. You didn't check in very frequently with the audience to stay connected to the audience. You did a little bit at the beginning. You did a great job at the beginning and a little bit at the end, but not in the middle. You didn't insert any that I heard connecting with the audience. Everything kind of occurred at McDonald's, and I wish there would have been another restaurant. I don't like McDonald's. Maybe a different restaurant. How about
Maybe McDonald's Crossing.
Huh?
Maybe McDonald's Crossing.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. It kind of sounded like you were at the same place when you had all these incidents, but like it all happened like one right after the other because it was all centered around McDonald's.
Presentation. I thought the same question. I think anyone living in the city could relate to it. I thought that was really strong. I would have liked to hear more about who your friend was as a person, since she was interjected through so much of the story. I think one of your strengths was that I felt like it was conversationally close to how you actually converse to people for much of it. On a growth opportunity, when you did have the parts that were characterized, they were really high, and I kind of feel like I would have liked to see a little more dynamics in between the two. Like you had the conversational and then the very animated, but not much in between those two levels. So it was kind of like light switch on and light switch off. Other than that, I think some of these things were really strong, and I did like the way you wrapped it up in the end. And I felt a nice connection at the end of the story about you, and I could really see how you enjoyed spending time with the elderly gentleman, and that was a nice way to wrap it up.
In process, and I fully understand that. First of all, you're a great storyteller. I love the relevancy, but also the way you kind of put yourself in the situation. It's believable, it's real. And it's not necessarily it's a technique you use, it's just some people are good at telling stories. And I don't know, you're good at telling stories. And you did, as your story went on, you got more and more connection with you. Since it was a kind of story you're doing off the cuff and not really prepared, there are a lot of things I was thinking about for development. Small point, I've heard this, a lot of speakers do that. Instead of saying many of you, just say have you. How many of you, just that way it personalizes it, makes one-on-one dialogue. There's a lot of places in here where you're talking back and forth and you say, well, we talked about this, we talked about that. There's a lot of narration. It could be, the whole thing could be dialogue. And I said to Terry, hey Terry, what's going on? How would you handle things? Well, this is the way I'd handle it. Well, Terry, I don't think that's the way you handle it at all. I'd handle it like this. So you could have dialogue going all the way through and then switch. And then I told about this other guy. And then the whole thing could be done in dialogue. A lot more lively, a lot more creative. Think about pausing after the story. And really, what's ultimately the point? I mean, if who gets the money is the question. At the very end saying, well, I don't know. It's like, okay, that's good. Maybe there's a technique, maybe there's a method. Maybe you finally figure out, if we really learn, if you want to give people money, here are the things you want to look for. And if there isn't anything to look for, then maybe wait till you figure out what that magical thing is. Listening all the way through the speech at the end, just saying, well, your guess is as good as mine. Like, okay. Work in process, so I fully understand, but interesting idea. I think really can be developed. I encourage you to give it a few more times, figure out where it's going, give it some legs. Thank you for doing this last moment.
Fellow Toastmasters, and especially Shannon. As you know, this is my first time visiting your club. Next steps. And when I signed up to be a speech evaluator, I did not realize that I would be evaluating a 21-year veteran. Shannon, clearly you are a great speaker. And it was only when Connie mentioned it that it dawned on me, wow, you are speaking off the cuff. I like the fact that you started your speech with a question. Anyone see panhandlers? Did you give money? You knew what the answers were going to be. And those questions created an agreement in the room, and it got our attention. Who gets the money? I have not really thought about that. So tell me more. And then you gave us 3 stories, starting with the entertaining gay person, and then the frail old lady, yet she can throw the Big Mac to Terry. And then you ended with a more uplifting story, the old man with no teeth who invited you to sit with him. Shannon, you were such a natural speaker. When you were telling us a story, I feel that there is a little silent film here with the characters acting out the stories. I could literally see the old man with no teeth and you sitting next to him. Honestly, I was very touched by that scene. And it was so nice that you gave it the footnote that, sometimes there is a good ending to stories. Perhaps because you gave the speech off the cuff, I felt that the conclusion made me want to get more. I felt that your message could be even more uplifting. Yes, there are a lot of panhandlers in the city, and there are so many different people, like the entertaining person who just wanted money and not the food. And it sounded like he just didn't want his time wasted to go to McDonald's with you. There's definitely uplifting message behind it. There are people suffering, there's poverty, with the economy the way it is. Perhaps there could be a better developed conclusion so that the audience is brought back to the original agreement that you set up at the beginning of the speech. And Shannon, thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide a speech evaluation. And please let us know who gets the money. And by the way, I would love to meet Terry.